Dr. Zara Nightingale never expected her simple psychological assessment to destroy everything she believed about human nature. When the FBI knocked on her door at 3 in the morning, she knew her 3-minute test had revealed something far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Zara had always been different from other criminal psychologists. While her colleagues relied on lengthy evaluations and complex diagnostic tools, she believed evil could be detected in mere minutes through a single, carefully crafted question. Her unconventional approach had earned her both ridicule and respect in academic circles, but she never stopped believing that somewhere in the human psyche lay a switch that separated good from absolute darkness. The test itself seemed deceptively simple. Subjects would sit across from her in a sterile white room while she observed their micro-expressions, body language, and verbal responses to one specific scenario. She'd spent 7 years developing the perfect psychological trigger, a moral dilemma so precisely crafted had it bypassed conscious thought and accessed the deepest parts of human nature. The question forced people to reveal their true capacity for evil within 3 minutes, stripping away all pretense and social conditioning. What made Zara's approach revolutionary wasn't just its speed, but its accuracy. Traditional psychological evaluations could be manipulated by intelligent subjects who understood how to game the system. Psychopaths were notorious for their ability to charm and deceive trained professionals. But Zara's test attacked from an angle they never saw coming, triggering involuntary responses that couldn't be faked or hidden. Her breakthrough had come during her residency at Millbrook Psychiatric Hospital, where she'd encountered Marcus Thorne, a patient who'd brutally murdered his entire family, yet convinced everyone of his remorse and rehabilitation. Something about his perfectly calculated emotions had bothered her, inspiring her to develop a test that could penetrate such elaborate deceptions. She'd spent countless nights studying neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and evolutionary biology, searching for the biological markers that separated those capable of genuine evil from ordinary people experiencing temporary darkness. The FBI's interest had begun 6 months earlier when Detective Zara Martinez contacted her about consulting on a series of unsolved murders. The killer was methodical, intelligent, and had left no physical evidence. Traditional profiling methods had failed completely. In desperation, Martinez had reached out to Zara, hoping her unconventional approach might provide new insights. Zara had agreed to evaluate the 3 primary suspects using her test. The results had been disturbing in ways she'd never anticipated. 2 suspects had passed completely. Their responses indicated normal psychological functioning despite their suspicious circumstances. But the 3rd suspect, Robert Chun, had triggered every alarm her test was designed to detect. His micro-expressions, physiological responses, and verbal patterns had painted a picture of someone fundamentally different from ordinary humans. What terrified Zara wasn't just Chun's results, but how perfectly he'd hidden his true nature from everyone else. He was a respected community leader, devoted husband, and loving father. His public persona was so convincing that even after her test results, she'd questioned her own methodology. But when the FBI arrested Chun based on her evaluation, They'd uncovered evidence linking him to 17 additional murders spanning 12 years. The media attention had been overwhelming. Suddenly, everyone wanted to understand how a simple 3-minute test could succeed where years of traditional investigation had failed. Zara had found herself thrust into the spotlight, fielding calls from law enforcement agencies, academic institutions, and television producers. But with fame came scrutiny, and not everyone was pleased with her methods. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, a prominent forensic psychologist, had publicly challenged Zara's work, claiming her test was pseudoscience that relied on confirmation bias rather than genuine psychological insight. The criticism had stung, particularly because Hartwell had once been Zara's mentor and closest friend. Their professional relationship had deteriorated into a bitter rivalry that dominated psychology conferences and academic journals. Despite the controversy, requests for Zara's services had poured in from around the country. She'd helped solve cold cases, evaluate suspects, and even consulted on corporate hiring decisions for high-security positions. Each success had validated her methods while simultaneously increasing the pressure to prove herself again and again. But tonight was different. The FBI agents standing in her doorway weren't seeking her expertise, they were investigating her. Agent Rebecca Torres held up a warrant while her partner, Agent David Kim, surveyed Zara's apartment with suspicious eyes. Something had gone wrong with her test, something serious enough to warrant a middle-of-the-night investigation. "Dr. Nightingale," Agent Torres said, her voice carefully controlled, "we need to discuss your recent evaluation of Dr. Michael Brennan." "There's been a development." Zara's hands trembled as she led the FBI agents into her living room, her mind racing through every detail of the Brennan evaluation. Dr. Michael Brennan had been referred to her just 2 weeks ago by the Seattle Police Department after a series of disturbing incidents at Northwest General Hospital, where he worked as a neurosurgeon. 3 patients had died under mysterious circumstances during routine procedures, and while the deaths appeared accidental, something had felt wrong to the investigating officers. Agent Torres settled into the chair across from Zara, her expression unreadable. "Dr. Brennan was found dead in his home 4 hours ago. Apparent suicide, but the scene was unusual. Before he died, he left a detailed confession to 17 murders spanning 8 years, including the 3 hospital deaths we were investigating." The words hit Zara like a physical blow. She'd evaluated hundreds of people using her test, but she'd never had someone take their own life immediately afterward. Brennan had seemed disturbed by his results, but she'd interpreted his reaction as guilt over minor moral compromises, not the response of a serial killer facing exposure. "What makes this our concern," Agent Kim continued, "is what else we found. Dr. Brennan had been researching you extensively. His computer contained detailed files about your methods, your previous cases, and personal information about your life that goes far beyond what's publicly available. He knew things about your test that you've never published." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. Her 3-minute evaluation was based on proprietary research she'd never fully disclosed, even in academic papers. The specific psychological triggers she used, the physiological markers she monitored, and the algorithmic scoring system she developed were closely guarded secrets. If Brennan had somehow reverse-engineered her methods, it raised disturbing questions about who else might possess that knowledge. "There's more," Agent Torres said, sliding a photograph across the coffee table. "We found this hidden in his study." The image showed Zara leaving her office 3 days earlier, but it had been taken from an impossible angle. Someone would have needed to be positioned on the roof of the building across the street. Red circles had been drawn around her face, and handwritten notes covered the margins in Brennan's distinctive script. The notes detailed her daily routines, her preferred coffee shop, even the time she typically arrived and left work. "He'd been watching you for months," Kim explained. "The question is why? Did he say anything during the evaluation that might explain his obsession?" Zara closed her eyes, forcing herself to remember every detail of the Brennan session. He'd been different from other subjects, more analytical, more probing in his questions about her methodology. She'd attributed his curiosity to his medical background and scientific training, but now she wondered if he'd been studying her as carefully as she'd been evaluating him. "He asked about false positives," she said slowly. "Most people just want to know their results, but he was interested in the margin of error. He wanted to understand how someone might theoretically manipulate the test to appear normal when they weren't." The agents exchanged glances. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing specific, but I did mention that the test relies on involuntary responses that are extremely difficult to fake." I thought I was reassuring him, but now... Zara trailed off, realizing how naive she'd been. If Brennan had been planning to use her test to identify other killers or to understand how he might be detected, her casual explanation could have provided crucial intelligence. Agent Torres leaned forward. "Dr. Nightingale, we need you to understand the gravity of this situation. Michael Brennan wasn't just any serial killer. Our preliminary investigation suggests he was part of something larger, possibly a network of individuals who share information about evading detection. Your test may have compromised that network, which could explain why he was so interested in your methods." The implications hit Zara like an avalanche. If her 3-minute evaluation had somehow exposed an organized group of killers, then everyone she'd identified using the test could be in danger. Worse, if other members of this network understood her methodology, they might be able to circumvent future evaluations or even use her techniques to identify and eliminate potential witnesses. "We found communications on Brennan's computer that suggest he wasn't working alone," Kim continued. "Encrypted messages discussing the Nightingale problem and references to neutralizing a threat to their operations. Dr. Nightingale, we believe your life may be in danger." Zara's apartment suddenly felt claustrophobic. Every shadow seemed to hide a potential threat. Every sound from the hallway could be someone coming for her. She dedicated her career to identifying evil, never considering that evil might be organized enough to identify her in return. "There's something else," Torres said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Brennan's confession mentioned other psychologists. He claimed there were others like you professionals who developed methods for detecting what he called our kind. According to his notes, most of them are already dead. The room spun around Zara as the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. Her revolutionary test hadn't just identified individual killers, it had apparently threatened an entire network of predators who'd been operating in secret for years. They'd systematically eliminated other researchers who'd gotten too close to the truth, and now she was next on their list. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Stop looking for us, or join your colleagues. You have 48 hours to destroy your research and disappear. This is your only warning." Agent Kim was already on his radio, calling for backup and protective detail. But Zara knew that FBI protection would only delay the inevitable. These people had been killing for years without detection, eliminating threats with surgical precision. If they wanted her dead, hiding behind federal agents would only buy her time. She needed to understand what she'd stumbled into, and more importantly, she needed to find a way to stop it before they silenced her forever. The FBI safe house felt more like a prison than protection. Zara sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by boxes of her research files that agents had retrieved from her office, trying to piece together the conspiracy that had destroyed so many lives. Agent Torres had been right. 3 other psychologists who developed similar detection methods had died under suspicious circumstances over the past 18 months. Dr. Patricia Valdez had supposedly committed suicide after her revolutionary empathy mapping technique identified a child molester in her own research team. Dr. James Morrison had died in a car accident just days after publishing a paper about neurological markers in antisocial personality disorders. Most recently, Dr. Lisa Chen had suffered a fatal allergic reaction at an academic conference, despite having no known allergies. Each death had been thoroughly investigated and ruled accidental or self-inflicted, but the pattern was unmistakable to Zara's trained eye. Someone had been systematically eliminating researchers who posed a threat to their network, making each death look unrelated and natural. The organization behind these murders was sophisticated, patient, and absolutely ruthless. Zara's phone rang, displaying her sister Maya's number. She almost didn't answer. The FBI had warned her to limit contact with family members, but Maya's persistence suggested something important. "Zara, thank God you answered." Maya's voice was tight with fear. "Someone broke into my apartment last night. They didn't take anything, but they went through all my photos of you. They even took some of your old college pictures from my albums." The blood drained from Zara's face. The network wasn't just threatening her. They were gathering intelligence about her personal life, probably looking for leverage or additional targets. Maya lived 3 states away and had no connection to psychology or law enforcement, yet somehow they'd found her. "Maya, listen to me carefully," Zara said, catching Agent Kim's attention with urgent gestures. "You need to get out of your apartment right now. Don't pack anything. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Just leave immediately and call me from a different phone. You're scaring me, Zara. What's going on?" Before Zara could answer, the line went dead. Kim was already coordinating with the local FBI field office, but Zara knew it might be too late. These people had been planning their moves for months, maybe years. They wouldn't have contacted Maya without having a specific purpose in mind. Agent Torres returned from her phone call with grave news. We've been monitoring chatter on several encrypted networks. The good news is that we've identified at least 3 members of what they call the collective. The bad news is that they're accelerating their timeline. Our intelligence suggests they're planning something big within the next 24 hours. What kind of something? Zara asked, though she dreaded the answer. We're not entirely sure, but intercepted messages reference cleansing protocols and eliminating all witnesses. Dr. Nightingale, we believe they're planning to eliminate everyone who's been exposed to your test, every subject you've evaluated, every law enforcement officer you've worked with, possibly even other psychologists who might continue your research. The scope of the threat was staggering. Over the past 6 months, Zara had evaluated nearly 40 suspects for various law enforcement agencies. If the collective planned to eliminate all of them, along with the officers and attorneys who'd been involved in those cases, they were looking at a coordinated mass killing unlike anything in modern history. There's more, Torres continued. We've learned that the collective isn't just a group of individual killers. They're organized like a corporation with different specialties and hierarchies. Some members are what they call operators, the ones who actually commit murders. Others are facilitators who provide resources, cover identities, and cleanup services. But the most dangerous are the architects, individuals who plan and coordinate large-scale operations. Zara studied the intelligence reports Torres spread across the table. The organizational structure was sophisticated beyond anything she'd imagined, with members embedded in law enforcement, healthcare, legal systems, and academic institutions. They'd been operating for at least a decade, possibly longer, carefully recruiting individuals who could provide access and cover for their activities. How many people are we talking about? Zara asked. Conservative estimates suggest at least 50 active members across 12 states, possibly more internationally. But here's what really concerns us. They've been using your test. The revelation hit Zara like a physical blow. What do you mean? Kim pulled out a tablet showing surveillance footage from what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse. We raided one of their facilities this morning. They'd set up a complete psychological evaluation center with your test protocols printed and laminated. They've been using your methodology to recruit new members and identify potential threats within their own organization. On the screen, Zara watched a man in a business suit administering her 3-minute evaluation to a terrified-looking woman strapped to a chair. The perversion of her life's work, seeing her methods used to facilitate evil rather than identify it, made her physically ill. They've weaponized your research, Torres explained. They're using it to build the perfect criminal organization, eliminating anyone who doesn't meet their psychological criteria and recruiting those who do. Dr. Nightingale, you didn't just identify evil, you accidentally created a blueprint for organized evil to identify itself. Zara's laptop chimed with a new email from an encrypted address. The message contained a single line: "Your sister is safe, but she won't be for long." Midnight Warehouse District, Pier 47. Come alone. Bring your complete research files, and maybe we can discuss terms. Agent Torres was already mobilizing tactical teams, but Zara knew the collective held all the advantages. They'd been planning this confrontation for months, while law enforcement was still trying to understand the scope of the threat. Somehow, she had to find a way to turn her knowledge of human psychology against the very evil she'd spent her career studying. The next 8 hours would determine whether her life's work would save lives or destroy them forever. The Warehouse District at midnight felt like stepping into another world, a labyrinth of shadows and abandoned buildings where normal rules didn't apply. Zara clutched her research files against her chest as she approached Pier 47, every instinct screaming at her to run. But Maya's life hung in the balance, and the FBI's tactical team was positioned throughout the area, ready to intervene if things went wrong. Agent Torres's voice crackled through the nearly invisible earpiece Zara wore. "We have eyes on you, Doctor. Remember, your job is just to get information and keep them talking until we can move in safely." The warehouse at Pier 47 was massive, easily the size of an airplane hangar. Zara pushed through the heavy metal door and found herself in a space that had been transformed into something resembling a twisted laboratory. Computer monitors lined the walls, displaying psychological profiles and test results from dozens of individuals. In the center of the room, Maya sat bound to a chair, conscious but clearly terrified. "Dr. Nightingale," a cultured voice called from the shadows. "Thank you for coming." The man who stepped into the light was not what Zara had expected. Dr. Edmund Blackthorne appeared to be in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes that reminded her of her favorite graduate school professor. His gentle demeanor made him seem more like someone's grandfather than the architect of a murderous conspiracy. "You're surprised," Blackthorne observed with a slight smile. "People always expect evil to look a certain way. That's why your test was so revolutionary. It looked past appearances to find the truth underneath." "Let my sister go," Zara demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. "You wanted my research. Here it is." "Oh, my dear, this isn't about obtaining your research. We've had access to your complete methodology for months. One of our facilitators has been monitoring your computer systems since you first published your preliminary findings. This is about something far more important." Blackthorne gestured to the monitors around the room. "You see, Dr. Nightingale, you've created something extraordinary. Your 3-minute test doesn't just identify evil. It quantifies it, measures it with scientific precision. Do you realize what that means?" Zara's blood ran cold as the implications became clear. "You're using it to grade your members, to create some kind of hierarchy based on psychological damage." "Precisely." Blackthorne's eyes lit up with genuine enthusiasm. "For decades, our organization has been limited by human error and emotional weakness. Members would hesitate at crucial moments, show mercy when elimination was necessary, or worse, develop actual empathy for their targets. But your test has allowed us to identify and promote only those individuals who are truly committed to our cause. On the monitors, Zara could see psychological profiles arranged by numerical scores, her own scoring system perverted into a ranking mechanism for human monsters. The highest scores belonged to individuals whose capacity for evil was off any normal scale, while lower-scoring members were marked for re-evaluation or termination. The beauty of your system, Blackthorne continued, is that it's completely objective. There's no room for bias or personal judgment. A score of 8.7 or higher indicates someone who can kill without hesitation or remorse. A score below 6.0 suggests someone who might compromise operations due to residual humanity. "You're insane," Zara whispered. "These are human beings, not commodities to be evaluated and discarded." "Are they, though?" Blackthorne's gentle facade slipped slightly, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "Dr. Nightingale, you've spent years studying the psychology of evil. You know as well as anyone that some people are fundamentally different. They don't feel guilt, remorse, or genuine emotion. They're evolutionary anomalies, predators in a world of prey." Maya whimpered softly from her chair, and Zara felt a surge of protective fury. "That doesn't give you the right to organize them into some kind of murder corporation, doesn't it?" Blackthorne seemed genuinely curious about her response. "Throughout history, humans have organized themselves according to their natural abilities. Athletes compete in sports, intellectuals pursue academics, artists create beauty. Why shouldn't those of us with a talent for elimination organize professionally?" Agent Torres's voice whispered urgently in Zara's earpiece. "Keep him talking. We've located at least 6 additional members in the building, but we need to position teams before we move." Zara forced herself to engage with Blackthorne's twisted logic while her mind raced for an escape plan. "If you already have my research, why am I here?" "Because you're going to help us expand internationally," Blackthorne replied matter-of-factly. "The collective has received inquiries from similar organizations in 17 countries. They want to implement your evaluation system to improve their operational efficiency. Think of it, Dr. Nightingale, your test could revolutionize organized crime worldwide." "I'll never help you hurt innocent people." Blackthorne sighed as if disappointed by a slow student. "My dear, you already have. Every person you've identified using your test has been thoroughly researched by our organization. We now have comprehensive files on hundreds of individuals with varying degrees of psychological damage. Some we've recruited, others we've eliminated as potential threats. Your test has been incredibly useful for expanding our membership while simultaneously removing obstacles." The true scope of the horror became clear to Zara. Every evaluation she'd conducted, every report she'd filed with law enforcement had been feeding intelligence to the collective. They'd been using her work to build their organization while eliminating anyone who might expose them. Robert Chun wasn't arrested because of my evaluation, she realized aloud. You had him killed because his score was too low. He was going to expose the network. Very good, Doctor. Chun scored only a 4.25, too much residual humanity for our purposes. His arrest would have led to uncomfortable questions about our recruitment methods. Maya made a muffled sound that might have been Zara's name. Looking at her sister's terrified face, Zara made a decision that would either save them both or get them killed. "I'll do it," she said quietly. "I'll help you expand internationally. But first, I want to see the complete scope of your organization. I want to understand exactly what I'll be contributing to." Blackthorn smiled with genuine warmth, as if she'd just agreed to collaborate on an academic paper rather than facilitate global murder. "Wonderful. Let me show you our greatest achievement, yet the next evolution of your test." Blackthorn led Zara deeper into the warehouse, past banks of computers and monitoring equipment that would have impressed any university research facility. Maya remained tied to her chair, but Zara could see armed guards positioned around the room. This wasn't going to be a simple rescue operation. "What you've created, Dr. Nightingale, is revolutionary but limited," Blackthorn explained as they walked. "Your test requires face-to-face interaction and trained administrators. But we've solved that problem." They stopped before a massive wall display showing a software interface that made Zara's blood freeze. Her 3-minute evaluation had been converted into an artificial intelligence system that could analyze thousands of people simultaneously through social media posts, online communications, and digital behavioral patterns. "We call it the Nightingale engine," Blackthorn said with obvious pride. "It can evaluate anyone with a digital footprint and assign them a precise psychological score without their knowledge. We've already processed over 2 million profiles across North America." The implications were staggering. Zara's methodology, designed to identify dangerous individuals during controlled evaluations, had been weaponized into a mass surveillance system capable of psychologically profiling entire populations. Red dots on a world map showed active installations of the software in major cities across 6 continents. "You're using it to identify targets for recruitment and elimination on an industrial scale," Zara whispered. "Among other applications," Blackthorn agreed. "Corporate clients pay handsomely to screen potential employees for psychological reliability. Government agencies use modified versions for intelligence operations. And of course, we maintain our own database for organizational purposes." Agent Torres's voice crackled urgently in Zara's earpiece. "Doctor, we've detected multiple hostiles moving through the building. Whatever you're going to do it fast." Zara stared at the screen showing her life's work perverted beyond recognition. Every principle she'd dedicated her career to using psychology to protect innocent people from those who would harm them had been turned inside out. The collective had transformed her test into a weapon of unprecedented scope and precision. "There's something you need to understand about your evaluation," Blackthorn continued conversationally. "The question you ask subjects isn't actually designed to detect evil at all. It's designed to measure emotional responsiveness and empathy. You've been identifying people with normal human psychology and labeling them as threats to those of us who lack such limitations." The revelation hit Zara like a physical blow. Everything she'd believed about her test was backwards. She hadn't been identifying psychopaths. She'd been identifying psychologically healthy individuals who posed a threat to organized psychopathy. Robert Chun wasn't eliminated because his score was too low, she realized. He was eliminated because his score was too high. He had too much empathy, too much moral reasoning. He was going to expose you because he couldn't live with what he'd discovered. Exactly. Blackthorn beamed like a proud teacher. Your test is perfect for our purposes because it identifies individuals with strong moral centers who might resist our influence or report our activities. We've used it to eliminate dozens of potential whistleblowers before they could become problems. Zara felt physically sick as she understood how thoroughly she'd been manipulated. Every dangerous individual she'd identified had likely been someone with enough moral courage to stand against the collective. She hadn't been protecting society from evil. She'd been delivering good people to their deaths. Maya doesn't need to die, Blackthorn said gently. Neither do you. Join us willingly. Help us refine the Nightingale engine, and you can live comfortably while contributing to something much larger than yourself. What happens if I refuse? Then you'll join the other psychologists who couldn't see the bigger picture. But first, we'll use your sister to demonstrate the enhanced version of your test. The Nightingale engine can now predict with 94% accuracy whether someone will resist our recruitment efforts or report our activities to authorities. On the screen, Maya's profile appeared with a score of 9.1, indicating someone with such strong moral convictions that she would never cooperate with the collective under any circumstances. The software was recommending immediate termination. Zara's earpiece crackled. FBI! Everyone on the ground! Now, the warehouse erupted into chaos as federal agents stormed through multiple entrances. Blackthorn remained calm, pulling out a small device that looked like a garage door opener. Dr. Nightingale, you've made a terrible mistake. The Nightingale engine isn't just surveillance software, it's a targeting system. Right now, there are operatives positioned near every high-scoring individual in this city. With one signal, we can eliminate everyone your test identified as morally reliable. Zara lunged forward, tackling Blackthorn before he could activate the device. They crashed into the computer console as gunfire erupted around them. Agents Torres and Kim appeared at her side, securing the detonator while tactical teams swept through the facility. Maya, Zara rushed to her sister, untying the ropes while medics checked for injuries. It's over, Torres announced as they led Blackthorn away in handcuffs. We've secured the facility and arrested 12 operatives. The Nightingale engine has been shut down. But as Zara watched the monitors go dark, she knew this was only the beginning. The collective had international operations, sleeper cells, and backup systems she couldn't even imagine. More importantly, they'd proven that any tool designed to identify evil could be turned against those fighting it. Dr. Nightingale, Agent Kim said quietly, we're going to need your help dismantling the rest of their network. Your knowledge of their methods might be our only advantage. Zara looked at Maya, finally safe but traumatized by the ordeal. Then, at the darkened screens that had once displayed her corrupted research. She'd spent her career trying to understand the psychology of evil, never realizing that evil might be studying her just as carefully. "Where do we start?" she asked. As they left the warehouse, Zara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown international number. Phase 1 complete. Welcome to Phase 2, the Board of Directors. The real conspiracy was just beginning, and this time Zara would be ready for them. If you found this psychological thriller captivating, there are more dark mysteries and mind-bending stories waiting for you. Hit that subscribe button to join our community of truth seekers who aren't afraid to stare into the abyss of human nature. Share this story with someone who loves psychological suspense, and let us know in the comments, do you think you could pass Dr. Nightingale's 3-minute test? What would your psychological score reveal about the darkness that might be hiding in your own mind? Ring that notification bell, because next week we're diving into another terrifying tale that will make you question everything you think you know about the people around you.